Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. Um, so I wanted first to talk a little bit about hap shawls because last time Donnie asked me a question about haps, and I did not see it until I had quit out of my video. So a hap shawl is like a traditional Shetland garment, and it's basically an everyday sort of shawl. So Kate Davies did this really cool book about hap shawls, and I have a pattern in it actually. And she traces the background of hap shawls and talks about different construction. And then there's another very, very cool book, and that is Heirloom Knitting. And this one is by Sharon Miller. So I think it's very difficult to get these days, but in it, she talks about the traditional construction of hap shawls. So this was hap, before circular needles were really common, and in the Shetland Isles, the women used to knit hap shawls and use knitting pins to work. And so what they would do is knit the border first, and then they would pick up from inside the border and then knit the shawl in from the border. So that was a traditional hap. And then now, more of a modern hap construction is to knit the center first and then pick up stitches around the center. So the Dry Creek shawl is actually a triangular basic modern hap construction in that you start at the base of the triangle right here, and then you work straight up, and then you're picking up stitches around the middle of that inner triangle and then knitting the border on from there. So the hap has an amazing history, and it's really cool to read about. Originally, apparently, hap meant to shelter and enfold, and I really suggest kind of reading more about it. I do not talk about it as eloquently as many other people, like Kate Davies and Gudrun Johnston talks about hap shawls. So definitely read up on some of the history of it. It's really quite fascinating. So, today we are going to talk about the knitted on border. And here we have the border. We're right to this edge here. And oh, and I see Donnie says that he just bought the book from Kate Davies the other day. That's awesome. Yeah, it is. It's a great book. I love it. So I'm so glad that you bought that. Um, okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about knitted on edgings today, and it's one of my favorite techniques. And the very, very cool thing about it is that it's knitted at a 90-degree angle onto the body of your shawl. And that does a couple of things. One thing, it's super easy to be able to figure out if you have enough yarn left over because you can weigh the amount of yarn you have and then do one repeat of your chart and then see if you're going to have enough yarn to carry that around all the way around your shawl. And I love doing that because I always have less yarn than I think I do because knitted on borders really take up lots and lots of yarn. So the other really cool thing is that you cannot bind off too tight with a knitted on edging because what you're doing is working two rows for each body stitch. So it becomes really super stretchy, and you have the edge of your knitting, instead of binding off along the long edge, you're going to be binding off along the short edge of your knitted on edging. So in essence, this little tiny bit over here, that is your bind off edge. So, and that way it keeps it nice and loose, and you're able to really stretch out the shawl and make it like perfect. So, when I started doing my knitted on edgings. The first time I ever did one, I was kind of in a panic because it just went around the bottom of the shawl and it was a triangle. And I was thinking, oh no, it's never going to block out around the bottom. But I'm here to tell you it does block out. So there is nothing done on this corner to make it block out. So there's no mitering or anything like that. There's just enough stitches in the body there to make sure that it blocks out really nicely. And if you have done the last row that led up to our cast on for that border, you will note that I added some stitches right around the center point, and that's so that will help it block out a little bit. And I'm just going to check here, see if I have any questions. Deborah, yes, you are a knitter after my own heart. Deborah says, I agree. I will only do knitted on borders. They look so nice. They do. They're awesome. And then Corinne says, I've done 7.5 repeats. Yes, that is so awesome. Congratulations. Okay, so you probably don't even need me, but I'm going to go over it anyway. And we're going to just talk about how to cast on for it and what to look for, and maybe some tips and tricks in case you feel like you're running a little short on yarn. So I'm just going to transition over here. And so here we are. We are right at the edging here. So we're at the contrast color edging. And then what we're going to do is cast on. So we're going to cast on 23 stitches with the knitted method, and then start knitting. And I'm just going to show you how that works. This is a little bit tricky to explain if you've never done a knitted on edging before, because it's not really obvious until you start doing it. So let's take a look here. I have a little tiny mini shawl prepared to do this. And what I like to do before I start working on my edging is I always section off my repeats on the chart. So I took a look at my edging chart here, and so I've taken a look here, and there are 12 right side rows. So this only shows right side rows. So there are 12 right side rows. So I've done one stitch here. So I sectioned that one stitch off with a marker, and then I'm going by 12s all the way around. So that's going to help me make sure that I don't get lost in the middle of the chart. Like once in a while, okay, so maybe too often I get distracted and I lose where I am in the chart. So this is incredibly helpful, especially when you're picking something back up and maybe your post-it fell off of your chart, or your chart keeper got knocked off by a pet or something like that. It really helps to have the markers between each repeat. So I've gone all the way around here, and then you can see at the end I have my last two stitches here, and that matches up with my chart. So I am really happy. I'm always incredibly happy when my stitch count works out. So I'm just going to cast on. And since I already have a marker here, I know that when I cast on my 23 stitches, I'm going to have 24 total stitches on the right side of my marker. So if I didn't have a marker right here, I would add a marker just to make sure, again, that I don't get distracted and cast on the incorrect number of stitches. So this is going to be 23 stitches, and let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to cast on with my knitted cast on. So here's one, and remember we did this before when we were doing the bind off across the top. you're always going to twist the stitch so that you can get it mounted on the needle correctly. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, and remember I was talking about being really distracted. I always place a marker every 10 stitches. So here is my first stitch that I started with. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 stitches, and I'm just gonna place a marker here in case I get distracted. I don't feel like counting again all the time. I always do this on longer cast-ons. So just so that I can keep talking to you guys and not have to go back and keep counting again and again. So there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and another 10. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure again, there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And I particularly always do this in classes. And I used to do this all the time when my kids were much younger because I would get in the middle of a long cast on and someone would always call me. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I have my 23 stitches cast on. I'm just going to leave this over here and I'm going to go over the chart just a little bit before we get started working the chart. So you can see over here, I talk about placing a marker before casting on to assist. I didn't do that this time. So if you do place any markers in that first row there, you definitely want to take them out just because it's a pain in the butt to have them in there. So the cast on is working up to the first row of our chart. So the next thing that happens is the first row of our chart. And you can see here I have work chart F, the edging chart, one time and binding off on the last row of chart. So I want to note it's going to be worked at a 90-degree angle to the body like I was talking about. And then note in here that rows 3 through 26 are repeated to form the edging pattern. So you're basically working the chart one time, but inside that chart, you're going to be repeating rows 3 through 26 over and over to get the pattern in your edging. So I'm just going to look over here and make sure nobody has a question. Okay, so far so good. Alrighty, so you can see here on the chart, um, this is right side rows only for the chart. That's all it is. You're only going to be looking at the right side rows on this chart. And then over to the right here, all of the even numbered rows, those are going to be this exact same thing. So there's a little bit of an edging on there, like just a little tiny tooth on the edging. So it's not completely straight. So this repeat area will change on the different rows. So basically all you're doing is you are slipping that first stitch and you're going to slip the yarn with the you're going to slip the stitch with the yarn in front, and then you're going to knit to the last 2 stitches, and on the last 2 stitches you're going to knit those 2 through the back loop to twist the edge. So twisting the edge again makes a really nice and neat edging there. So here I'm just going to place this. As in the other charts, I have numbers here, and you can see I have a 7. So that is just for 7 knitted stitches. So I thought it was easier just to look at it that way to make sure that no one lost count. So that's basically the only reason that's there. Okay, so here we go. So this looks a little weird right now, but as we go along, you're going to see that this edge, you're going to be going back and forth. So at 90 degrees to your body. So let's just get these back over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit 2 stitches through the back loop. And then I'm going to knit 1 stitch. I'm going to remove that marker. And then I have 7 knit stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then here again, I have little bunches of 5. So I have 10, 11, 12 before I hit this kind of funky looking little symbol there. So there's 1, 2, 3. Get rid of that. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So now I have 2 stitches left over right here. So I'm going to knit those 2 stitches together through the back loop. And that's going to create a little chain stitch all the way around the right between the body and the edging stitches. It's going to look really pretty and finished. So here I'm going to just, here's my needle. I'm going to go through the back and work those 2 stitches together. So you can see at the base here, the 2 stitches are twisted at the base. And then I'm just going to take that stitch marker out. I'm going to get ready for my next right side row after my wrong side row here. So I'm going to turn this over. And my first stitch, so I'm always going to slip this first stitch with the yarn towards me. And that is so it does not interfere with that really pretty chain stitch that goes around the edge. So I'm going to slip one, and then I'm going to bring the yarn to the back. And I'm just going to knit all the way to 2 stitches before the end. And so remember, every wrong side row, every even numbered row is slip that first stitch with your yarn towards you. So that's yarn in front of the work. And then you're going to knit all the way to 2 stitches from the end. Oops. And then those 2 get knitted through the back loop to twist. Okay, so that's your first row of the chart, and it still looks a little wonky. I mean, it looks kind of messy, but remember, we're going to block this and it's going to be amazing and beautiful and perfect because blocking is magic. So now here I am on my first row here of this repeated area. So this box right here is my pattern that's going to be repeated over and over. And that's what's going to create my beautiful edging pattern. So put that right there. And I'm just looking. So Jennifer asked, what is the purpose and effect of twisting stitches above the yarn overs? So I like nice and neat and tidy yarn overs. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to do this first yarn over. And then as we're going along and I'm building the pattern, I'm going to show you what it looks like with a twisted stitch above the yarn over as opposed to one that does not have a twisted stitch above the yarn over. Okay, so let's see, any other questions? Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to do knit one through the back loop, and then knit two together through the back loop. And then Jennifer, that is an excellent idea. So she was saying put a stitch marker on either side of the 7-stitch repeat. That is a very good suggestion, and I'm going to do that. So that's my stitch marker, and that's going to stay there, and it's just going to stay around those 7 stitches so that I don't have to think about where they are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that repeat is always going to stay the same. It's always going to have those 7 stitches in between your markers there. And now we have 5 and 6 other stitches. I'm all for any kind of markers that make things easier. I get distracted. Okay, and now we're 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here we are. We're at the last stitch of the edging, and that's the next body stitch. So these two are going to be knit together through the back loop. And you can see there's the next little stitch in my chain. And I'm just going to turn this over, and I'm going to slip that stitch with the yarn in front and then bring it to the back. And I'm just going to work along this row. And again, it's the same thing on every single row. And you can see that also in the written instructions, probably a little bit better. So just going to work all the way down here. And then my last 2 stitches are going to be worked through the back loop. So there we go. Okay, so making a little progress. So now if I were worried about running out of yarn at all, which I'm not in this particular case, I would weigh my yarn right before the beginning of row 3 and mark it on my chart. And then right when I get up to row 26, I would complete row 26 and then weigh my yarn and subtract the amount, what I have ended up with from what I started with, and get that amount. And because you are working 27 of those repeats, I would multiply that number by 27 and make sure that I had more than enough to finish my entire border. So if you do not have enough to finish your border, there are things you can do. One of my favorite tricks is to take a double pointed needle that's one size smaller than the working needle and use that on alternating rows. And often that works really well. So in this particular edging, another thing that you can do, so you see this the 7s all the way up here, you can turn that into another number. So if you feel like you're not going to have enough yarn to do the whole border, you can say, okay, well, I'm going to try like 4 stitches there instead of 7. And that's going to save you quite a few stitches over your entire border. So usually like a little tiny change in your edging is going to make a huge difference, and you'll be surprised how much yarn you save. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next row and just kind of checking over here. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is knit one through the back loop. And now I have a knit front and back. So I'm going to knit through the front of the stitch and then through the back. So now I have 3 stitches on right before my marker here. So you can see that there's only 1 box for a stitch, but that 1 box yields 2 stitches. So basically what it's telling you is you only needed 1 stitch to make the 2 stitches. So there are actually 3 there. And I'm going to just do my 7 stitches. And I'm going to show you the difference between how it looks with a twist above your yarn over and how it looks without. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now I'm at the right place. That's always good when I end up at the right place. Okay, so here, this stitch is going to be twisted, but I'm going to show you what it looks like without the twist. I'm just going to knit into that and then go over to the side here. Okay, so you see here at the base of the stitch how kind of big that looks. It looks a little bit sloppy to me. Like this is the bottom tip of a diamond, but the bottom tip of the diamond is kind of wide here. Like the stitch legs are split apart and it just looks really wide. So that is why I like to twist that stitch. So let me show you what happens when I twist that stitch. So I'm just going to go through the back and I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Okay, so now you can take a look at it and see how it's much less wide now. So before, when the legs were really spread apart, now the legs are kind of twisted up together and it comes to a better point. So that works really well in a geometric pattern. If you're working something that looks kind of leafy and organic, you don't want such hard edges like that. So I generally do not put any twists in like a more leafy or feathery pattern because I want to kind of capitalize on the wide stitch bottom here. But this is a super geometric pattern, so I like it to look nice and crisp. So that's that. Okay, just checking, making sure no one asked any other questions. Okay, so here we go. So 2 more stitches, and then I'm going to go knit 2 together through the back loop. Okay, so after I do this next wrong side row, I'm going to show you what this looks like throwing. And because I know that a lot of you have problems seeing what I'm actually doing with my yarn, because I don't, like, my knitting style is not very flamboyant. So it's kind of, I try to use the least motion possible. So I had some wrist and arm and elbow pain before, so I sort of retaught myself so that I wouldn't have as much of emotion in there. So let's get through here. Okay. Okay, so going to go on to row 7 and I'm going to show you. So again, I am not very good at throwing. So let me see here. I'll get the gist of it. Okay, so I'm going to knit 1 through the back loop, and then I'm going to knit front and then back. Okay, and then I have 1 more knit stitch. And I'm going to knit those 7 stitches. So I see I am literally throwing because I have little short stubby fingers. So here we go. I think it's going to be most helpful to see what it looks like when I do that knit 2 together through the back loop. Now I have 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so now I'm going to do a knit 2 together. Okay, didn't quite get that. Okay, and I'm going to do a yarn over, and then a knit one through the back loop, knit one through the back loop. So now I'm going to do another yarn over. So when you do a yarn over and you're throwing, it's basically bringing the yarn in front, and then you're just going to bring it over the needle to knit again, or to work your next stitch. So you want to make sure you get it over the top of the needle like that. And then I have one more stitch. So hopefully I'm in the right place, and I am. Yay. Okay, so now I'm going to knit two together through the back loop. So here are the back loops of my stitches here. My needle is going to go straight in, and then I'm going to knit two together through the back loop. And you can see how it's forming my little chain along the edge here. That looks really, really nice when it's done. Okay, so now let's turn it over. I'm just going to let this hang down. Okay, so I'm going to pretend I'm actually a thrower again. I'm just going to slip that stitch, and then I'm going to bring my yarn between my needles to the back. So now my yarn is all set up to knit again. Okay, so there I go. So it's a little bit slower too for me throwing. My mother had really long fingers, so she could flick it nicely over, and she never had to drop her needles. Okay, and let's see over here. Just want to make sure no one has any particular questions. If you do have any questions, I am watching the live chat, so I will pick them up and we can talk about them. So ask anything you want. If I can't answer it, I mean, if it's like, what's the meaning of life or something like that, I probably can't answer it, but everything else is fine. Anything you want to know. Okay. So that is that. Okay, so let me turn this over. So now you can start to see the pattern is beginning to grow a little bit. So we've only actually bound off 1, 2, 3, 4 body stitches. So even though it kind of feels like, oh, we're on the bind off, it takes a while. So you can see here that this edge is much stretchier than your usual bind off. So I think these are just so much fun. Some of the edgings that you can find knitted on edgings are just incredibly beautiful. So let me see. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about the center here. Okay, so in the center here, I had you do into the center stitch, I had you do a knit one through the back loop, and then yarn over and knit one. And what that does is it twists the stitch that you're knitting into. So remember when we were looking before at the stitches above the yarn overs and how they're twisted to make it look neater. So this one is also twisted. So I'm just going to show you the difference there, but I'm going to show it to you right in this little 7-stitch area, and then I'm going to take it out. So let me do this. I'm going to knit one through the back loop, and then knit front and back. So the knit front and back, of course, is increasing this out. Okay, so a lot of times when someone wants you to increase and make 3 stitches into 1 stitch, they will say maybe knit 1, yarn over, knit 1 into a stitch. So that's one possibility. And you can see how the stitch is kind of wide here. Or another way you can do it is knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. So again, that stitch is pretty wide because you've worked 3 stitches into 1 stitch. So then you can do a knit 1, knit 1 through the back loop, knit 1. That's another possibility, but I think that one is a little bit off center. So in the interest of saving the best for last, here's what I asked you to do. So knit 1 through the back loop, yarn over, and then knit 1. So this centers it the best that I have been able to figure out from any of the possibilities of increasing into a 1 stitch like that. So you can see at the bottom here, it's twisting the base of that stitch, so it's still really neat and tidy, as opposed to these other stitches here, and they're pretty wide. So I wanted to kind of keep that little neat stitch there at the base of the triangle. So yeah, so that is the knit 1 through the back loop, yarn over, and then knit 1. Okay, and I think I have a question. So Gloria says I mark off 12 stitches that are being bound off. It helps you keep on track. Yes, that's what I was doing here, in fact. I totally agree with that. That looks makes everything way, way easier. So definitely all the markers, use all the markers. So here I'm doing my 7 stitches, and now I have 3 there. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And I'm just gonna go along here. This one is a little bit tricky right when you get to this area here because you don't really expect it coming up. So good to count right in this area extra um, just until you get used to the pattern. So I did 3 stitches and now I'm going to knit 2 together and then yarn over and knit 1 and then knit 2 together through the back loop. Okay, I'm just going to turn it around and whip through this. And I just want to get a decrease row in here so I can show you anything. And if there's anything you have questions, so Pat Eisner asked, which symbol are you using for the KTBL yarn over K1? So that one is not on the chart. That one is just in the written instructions for the transition, and I will show you where that is in just a sec, right when I get to the end of this row. So sometimes when I have that on a chart, I do actually use a funky little symbol for it. But okay, let me put this down for a sec. Let me grab that. Okay. So that one is just, it's on row 6 of your transition here. So you're going to be slipping your marker. That's this marker right in the middle there on my mini shawl. And then right in between the marker is that 1 stitch, that 1 center stitch, and into that center stitch you're going to knit 1 through the back loop, yarn over, and knit 1. So in this particular case, I didn't put it in the chart, but I do sometimes. So just not this time. So now let me find my my chart again. Okay. And also, there are chart symbols. I know I went over this again, but so here they are again, the abbreviations and the chart symbols. And then the stretchy bind off is going to be used at the end. Let's see, just checking. So Claire says yes, using that too, but think maybe another size up. Okay. So you were, sorry, you were talking amongst yourselves. That's cool. Okay. So let's just go on another row here. So I'm going to start decreasing along the side here. So here is, here's a little kind of funky thing about this chart. So because your knit front and back is only picking up one square here, if I had the wrong side row here, it would actually be one stitch longer than is shown here. So it would go one box over. So basically what's happening here is this little symbol box here is a knit front and back, and then right above it, you are going to be working those two stitches that were created. You're going to be working those together. So this box here, one stitch makes two stitches. This box here, two stitches make one stitch. So that's a little bit funky. If you like to count stitches, you're going to be a little bit off there maybe if you're not paying close attention to this little area right there. Okay, so let's get this going. Oh, so Claire said, oh, okay, you're asking me. Okay. Um, I use like a 24 or a 32-inch cable needle set, but really whatever is comfortable to you is fine. I mean, it's totally knitter's choice, but I like my stitches to be sort of squished up together so I can work them faster. Um, of course, I sometimes work on longer needles too, so I can stretch it out and kind of admire it as I'm going along. So there's that too. Okay, so I am on 11. So I've knit one through the back loop, and now I'm going to knit two together through the back loop, and then knit two. Then I have my 7 stitches in between the markers. And I have 2 stitches here, and then a knit two together, yarn over, knit one through the back loop, yarn over, knit two together, knit one, knit two together, and then I'm right here, so yarn over, and then a knit one through the back loop, knit one, and then knit two together through the back loop. So at this point, you can start to kind of see how this goes together, and that it goes at a 90-degree angle here. And it's probably feeling a little less weird than it was to start with, because you're starting to see some pattern looking really nice there. And then Christine asked what stretchy bind off I recommend. So I have one in my abbreviations, and that one is the one that I love the most. So you work 2 stitches, and then you slip those 2 stitches back onto your left needle and knit 2 together through the back loop. So it's my very favorite stretchy bind off, and I've never known anybody to be able to bind off too tight with it. So I think there are different names for it. I just call it a stretchy bind off. I think I've heard it called the Russian bind off, but it's super handy. And another cool thing about it is that you can bind off in pattern. So if you're working along and you maybe have not enough yarn left, you can just bind off the bottom of a shawl with in in pattern. Of course, not on this shawl because this has a different type of edging. This one is a knitted on edging. So here we are. Yay, I've got some diamonds. Yay. Okay, so one more here. And I'm just kind of, hey Mel. Oh, Mel left her cup of tea in the kitchen. I could use some caffeine too. I mean, I have to say, caffeine is the staff of life. Okay, so here we go on the next row. And then I'm just gonna kind of watch the live chat for a little while and make sure I have everybody, um, make sure I answered everybody's questions. Because it's probably fairly boring watching me just knit like this. Oops. And I was not paying attention here. So I don't want to bore anybody to tears. Although my son tells me that I should get a Twitch account and just live stream myself knitting because gamers do it. So, which I thought was kind of funny, actually. So maybe I should do that, like knit gaming, right? Okay. So that is row 13. And gonna go again. Okay. So Terry asks, how long will your YouTubes be up? They are going to be up indefinitely. So I want people to be able to access them. And after the knit along is finished, I'm just going to make these public. And I'm assuming that people probably aren't going to be all that interested in them unless they have the pattern. But yeah, so they'll be up here for as long as you need them. And also, if you need to look at the lives after I finish, then you can just use the links in your intro file. Those will still be good for the lives. You can find them recorded on YouTube. So indefinitely. Yeah. So, Mel, you are so sweet. Mel says it's not boring watching you knit, it's soothing. Your son is right. That's great. So and then Karen asked what needles I'm using. They are really sharp. So these are signature needles, and I actually taught at a signature retreat, and you can see they put my name on them, and they were a gift for teaching at the retreat. And I actually think these are the medium points. They are really sharp. So if you don't want to spring for signatures, there are other needles too. I don't have any lying around, which is very strange. Usually I have like gazillions of pairs of needles just lying around, but I really like Carbons also by Knitter's Pride. Those are very cool. And a lot of their needles, they have the same kind of medium tip to them. So I really like those. Okay, so you can kind of see here how the edge has just a little pooch there. So when we block, and that's going to be next time, when we block, this is going to get pulled out into more of a point. So the other really, really cool thing about a knitted on edging like this is that you can just pull bits of that edging out, and then you don't have to weave your blocking wire in and out along the entire side. You can just put it through the point here and pull it out to block. So that is another great thing. Hi, Kathy. Yes, you were there. That was an awesome, awesome retreat. And then, Donnie, that is so sweet. You would support it. Okay. Like slow television in Norwegian countries. That's awesome. Yeah. So another amusing thing, I like stacking wood. So like I actually had during the winter, we have that discussion in this house about whether you should put the log in the fireplace bark up or bark down. So I totally get into the Norwegian wood stuff. I was joking that I was going to have a wood stacking channel. So here's my 7, and right now I'm up to that line there. So as long as people are enjoying this, Kathy likes Haya Haya. I like those two a lot. Yeah. And there are a lot of really cool needles out there, and it's really knitter's choice. So I can have incredibly sharp needles because I poke holes in my fingers. The way I knit, I push my needle down and it pokes a hole in my finger if I have really sharp needles. So, ah, like workplace injuries, you know. Okay, so let's put that one. Okay, and then Eric likes stacking wood too. Yay, stacking wood. It's like it is so relaxing. So big wood deliveries all the time here. I always feel good when I start the winter with lots of wood stacked up to use. Except now, apparently, some people stack wood into patterns. And so every time I'm stacking wood, um, Mr. Romi is like, well, you didn't stack a pattern or something. Are you gonna make, a forest scene or maybe something geometric? So Corinne says, I love my chogus. And Barbara, me too. Those are much beloved by many people. I have like a weird sensory thing, and they scrape a little bit. It makes me shiver when they scrape together. So I can't use chow goose. So anybody else who has like any weird issues around things scraping together, that's my warning for you. They're hard. They're kind of creepy feeling to me. But lots and lots of people love how really flexible the cable is on a chalgu. So I think it's awesome that we have so many choices. Okay, I think I messed up here. So I kind of messed up here, and I'm just going to show you how I'm going to fix it. So I only caught a little tiny bit of the stitch. I didn't get the whole thing. So I'm just going to fix that. Okay, so here, just going to get my stitch back on and just fix that one where I split the yarn. Okay, so there we go. All right. Okay, so I was back here. Oh, knit two together. I think I'm lost now. So now I'm just gonna backtrack and make sure I remember where I am. So I was over here, I knit two together. Okay, I'm not actually lost. That's always good. It makes me happy when I find out I'm not actually lost. Okay, so let's see, any other questions? Um, I'm so glad, Gloria, I'm so glad that you're enjoying it. That's awesome. Mel, yes. Mel says there's they have one pair of tips that have a little rough patch on one tip. Yes. Yes, yes. It's creepy when they scrape together. Okay, so I think I'm just going to go for this one more row here and then make sure nobody has any extra questions that they need answered. And then I'm just going to wrap this one up and I will talk a little bit about what we'll be doing next time. So the way that I have these spread out, you're probably going to be, well, hopefully going to be about halfway through your knitted on edging for the next live. Like, I don't expect you to be completely finished with the edging. Okay, so here's what we have so far. So we have a little bit of a pattern forming, which is really cool. I love to see the pattern emerge there and some stitches. And so I can see here, I have 4 stitches left over in my repeat. So, and that works well because I'm actually in the right place. So I always make sure I double check. Let's see. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. So so hopefully next time you'll be about halfway through the edging because the edging actually takes some time to it. So I'm gonna have my entire mini shawl is gonna have like the whole edging knit onto it, and I'm going to show you how to block it. So there are a few things that you want to in case you want to overachieve and block before the next live. If you do block it, so I still have my little pin here in the middle stitch. So before you block, you're going to want to weave in this tail from the beginning and make it sort of um, disappear into the pickup around the edge. So that's the first thing I'm going to show you how to do on the next live. And then I'm just going to block it. It's a little tiny shawl, so I'm just going to try doing a little blocking right here and on my little workstation. And I've cut down some blocking wires so I can show you how to weave them through the points on the edge and stretch it out. And um, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a blocking wire through the top bind off here because this is actually a little tube. So all the way through here, there's going to be a wire right through here that helps you stretch out. And then it's going to be woven just along the side here. And this is going to stretch out a lot. So you can see there's a lot of leeway there for the lace. So let's just check one more time. Okay, Mel is going to put beads in the edging. That is going to be amazing. That is going to be like beautiful. So in my group on Ravelry, I have some members who put lots of beads and everything, and it's so cool to watch everybody talking about the different colors and the different bead placement. So that's always fun. So let me just check one more time to make sure. Mel says, I don't have blocking wires and they're a bit hard to find here. Okay, so bought a thick, heavy duty nylon fishing line. I think that would work really well. Also, my blocking wires are actually TIG welding rod. So it's pure stainless steel TIG, that's spelled TIG welding rod. And here, I just got them at a hardware store. So Ace Hardware, which is my local hardware store. So I know that you, Mel, I know you have different stores down under, but so maybe one of your hardware stores might have the TIG welding rod. So you definitely want the pure stainless steel because it's a really high quality. And we'll talk a little bit about tools for blocking next time too. So they're not all created equally. So, okay, I think we're good. Thank you so much for joining me. And next week it's going to be the same time, so 4 o'clock Pacific time in the afternoon. And I'll pop in and see you guys in my Ravelry group. And if you have any questions or you're not able to access the Ravelry group, please just send me a message. I'm available. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter, and you can email me as well. And I can't wait to see you next week. You all take care. Have a great week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.